Do you ever have one of those days? You know, the days I'm talking about where nothing is working out for you. Like you get up in the morning, you stub your toe, you burn your coffee, your toaster eats your toast. You know, it's raining, can't find your keys. And like all the things are just happening. And you're just like, I can't seem to get it together. And you're wishing you just stayed in bed. Like, you're like, this isn't working out for me. I should have stayed in bed today. You ever have one of those days? I'm sure you have. We all have. We all have. That kind of got me thinking about our dogs and our fearful dogs in particular, and how lots of times, we talk about our dog's triggers. Like our dog doesn't like, men in hats, or my dog. It's not a music group. Men with hats. It's not a music group. We're talking about your dog not liking a music group. But you know what I'm saying. Your dog doesn't like, intact males, whatever it is. We have these points and triggers that we think about. But in a lot of cases, our dog's reactivity is actually, rather than one specific trigger, it's actually a culmination of a lot of little triggers that just add up and add up and add up until your dog is like, enough, I can't handle it anymore. And it comes out as a reaction. So I thought maybe that today would be a great day to talk about that, these silent stressors that are actually adding up to create the reactivity you're working so hard to prevent, and what we can do about it instead. Let's get into it. Ready to have a calm and peaceful life with your dog without the stress of those fear-based behaviors? Hi, I'm Tracy, and I've been there, overwhelmed by all the conflicting dog training advice and unsure of what to do next. But now I help dog lovers like you simplify your life with your dog by building confidence naturally, fostering trust, and addressing those fear-based challenges. So, if you're ready, stop chopping those chicken wieners and let's get to it. Hello, and welcome to Beyond Obedience. It's Tracy. I am super glad that you are here today about this particular topic. This is one that I actually talk about quite a bit, both in my Relationship Remedy and my Fearful Dog programs, this idea of layered stress. Now, this idea is not unique to just me. I can't say that I came up with it. I think I first heard about this at a seminar back in 2016 from a very talented trainer called Chad Mackin of Pack to Basics. And I never really thought about stress in this way before, but it really does make a lot of sense. And it goes so well with the work that I had already done with natural horsemanship and working with horses and the prey, and how horses, how they deal with that. And then I extrapolated that to, working with fearful dogs and how they go through the fear cycle. It all kind of worked together beautifully. So I love to share this concept of layered stress, because I think sometimes we don't really recognize that perhaps it's not just the fact that your dog doesn't like the neighbor's dog. In fact, that's probably due to repetitive canine conversations that are going on, where your dog is just like, it's just adding on top. If you remember from a few episodes ago, I mentioned that dogs don't hold grudges, but they do remember unfinished conversations. And so that is another example of a layering effect, this constant unfinished conversation, smack talking that's going on with your neighbor's dog. And that's why you're struggling so hard to get your dog's reactivity or barking at the fence to diminish, because it's just layering on top of each other. And similar to us having bad days, your dog can have bad days. Your dog can have things that slightly elevate their anxiety. Maybe not enough for you to be like, oh my gosh, my dog's freaking out, but just enough to raise the cortisol a little bit, just enough to create a little bit of unease. And that alone, that little tiny event alone, isn't enough to have your dog lose their mind. However, add a lot of those up during the day and you're going to get an explosion. It's eventually going to reach a boiling point where it can take no more, right? And that I think happens more often than we actually give our dogs credit for. So let's use the example of your dog's average day when we're talking about this. So in your dog's day, they wake up in the morning. Now, if you missed the episode about bookending your dog's day, this actually sort of is complementary to that episode. The idea that we want to start our dog's day off with predictability and end our days off with predictability, essentially bookending our dog's day with comfort and safety, so that, when we start the dog's day off that way, they're starting at a lower baseline of anxiety and stress versus a day that starts off unpredictable and these little stressors add up. But let's talk about, a day in the life of your dog. So your dog wakes up in the morning, they do their little big stretchy, the big stretchy that they do. They come over and they greet you. They maybe give you a little kiss or whatever it is that your dogs do. And in that moment, they are at a base level of anxiety and stress, right? Not much has gone wrong unless they had some bad dreams. I don't know. But generally speaking, they're well rested. They've slept through the night. You're there. They woke up to their life being like what they predicted. You're there, you're feeding them. Everything is the same. That's their baseline. But let's say you're like, I don't know, a work at home mom and, you have a delivery. The Purelator guy knocks on the door, and doorways and new strangers and whatnot are always a little bit challenging for your dog, but you've been working on it. You've been working on it. You've been working on door etiquette. So your dog isn't barking as much and all that stuff, but your dog is still uncomfortable, right? So now that baseline level of anxiety is slightly elevated, right? They're just a little bit more than when they woke up, because that guy came, he smelled funny, he was scared of dogs, your dog can sense it, like all that stuff. And then let's say this happens to be a day where you have, I don't know, I'm making stuff up, but your dog has to go to the vet today. Oh gosh, no dogs like the vet, but it's a necessary evil, right? Not that vets are evil, please. I'm not saying that. Right. But it's a necessary evil, right? But I mean, the reality of, I've had so many people send me questions about how do I get my dog to like going to the vet? You don't. You just don't. This is an absolute sidebar, but you just don't. There's some parts of your dog's life they're just not going to like. I mean, vets and vet techs do a great job of trying to make the experience as lovely as possible. There's always a jar of liver treats on, the counter and in the exam room, and your vet always talks really sweet, and the techs are always really nice to handle. But at the end of the day, someone's jabbing your dog with a sharp pointy needle or sticking a thermometer up their butt. It's not a fun experience, right? So sometimes we just have to get through it, So your dog doesn't love the vet. I don't know too many. I mean, somebody's going to come at me and be like, my dog loves the vet. Okay, fine, masochist. But, but generally speaking, most dogs don't, but it's a necessary evil. So you have to take your dog to the vet. Your dog does okay, right? You load the dog in the car. The dog does okay at the vet, but you're thinking to yourself, my dog did really well. I'm going to take them for a bit of a run. I'm going to go to your favorite place. I'm going to take you for a bit of a run. You drive to this new place, or to the place, you let your dog out. Your dog's going for a run. There's a bunch of new people there that they don't know. There's a little dog fight. Doesn't even include your dog, but it happened and it got your dog all stressed out. And you're like, I better get out of here before my dog gets attacked by a dog. So now you're taking your dog. Now, like if you can imagine, now the level of anxiety has increased, right? We've layered it on top. We haven't left enough time in between these events to allow that dog to come back down to baseline, to have some predictability, some things that make sense to them. So we're essentially just bumping them up and up and up this ladder of levels of stress, right? And somewhere on the ladder of stress here, somewhere, if you picture a ladder, somewhere up there, one of those steps on the ladder is a bright red line. And underneath that red line, it says bite, right? Underneath that. So picture the ladder, your dog's climbing it. There's a red line on one of the tines. What do you call those on ladders? The things. Tines? I want to say tines. That's probably not it. That's a fork. You know what? It doesn't matter. I'll now have to look that up. Somebody let me know what it is. My point is, if you look up the ladder, there's a red line, and underneath that it says bite, because every single dog has a bite threshold. Every single dog. Okay, now some dogs have a great big space between their baseline and their bite threshold. Some dogs don't. Some dogs are more predisposed to biting. And if your dog has bit and it worked for them, that gap between baseline and bite threshold gets a little bit shorter, right? That fuse or whatever you want to call it gets a little bit shorter. So as your dog goes throughout the day and all these little stressors keep adding up, your dog is being bumped up that ladder closer and closer and closer to that red line, to that threshold, to that point where they feel the need to bite. The same as we do when we're having a bad day and everything is going against us and we get to the point where we're just about to lose it, right? Same thing for your dog. So as the day progresses, you take your dog to that dog park or to the place where your dog runs. It's, your dog sees a dog fight. Even if they're not involved in it, it's still going to up their anxiety because they were a part of it. They saw it. They felt the energy of the dog fight. Now you bring your dog home in the car. He's still a little bit anxious, a little bit stressed. Maybe he had his vaccine, so he's feeling a little off, right? He's feeling a little bit off today. Like, what? I don't know. Now I'm feeling a little bit weird. You get out of the car. You see your neighbor there. Your neighbor's mowing his lawn, and your dog doesn't like the lawnmower, but your neighbor knows that too. So let's say your neighbor turns off the lawnmower, but it's too late. The dog already heard the lawnmower. Now they're really, really anxious, right? They've had all of these events that have happened. Your neighbor comes over, someone who your dog knows and loves and has met 100 times, and your neighbor goes, "Hey, what's up, buddy?" And he reaches over to pet your dog, and your dog snaps at him. And you're like, what just happened? He's never snapped at the neighbor before. That would be an example of layered stress. That would be an example of pushing a dog through more and more negatives, constantly creeping that anxiety level up and up and up and up until we hit that threshold. And once we're at that threshold, we're at the threshold. It wasn't actually your neighbor. It wasn't even the lawnmower. It was the culmination of all of the event sequences that happened throughout the day and not allowing our dog to come back to their place of comfort, to de-escalate, to absorb what they have just learned. We haven't allowed for that decompression to happen. And that's where bite out of nowhere happens. Like, I don't know, it came out of nowhere. The dog just went nuts out of nowhere. No, it wasn't out of nowhere. It'd be the same with me if I freaked out at Walmart for changing the grocery section after I've had a terrible day of, I started off my day having an argument, stubbing my toe, whatever. Now I'm in Walmart and I'm like, where's the peanut butter? And I'm losing my mind. Exact same thing. So what is it that you're supposed to do with this information? Essentially, just the acknowledgement that sort of happens, and then starting to see your dog's journey throughout the day as moments, and knowing that something out of the ordinary is going to add to that layered stress. Some new thing is going to add to some layered stress. And as I say, sometimes there's things that you can't avoid. Like, you have to take the dog to the vet. You have to take the dog to the vet. But in this particular example, take the dog to the vet and then come right back home. Even if you think, well, my dog really loves going for a walk, or you're thinking that's the right thing, the dog had a stressful event, let's bring them back home. Maybe we skip the dog park or the meeting with the other dogs or whatever, even if it's meeting with their friends. I know our main thought is to be like, well, isn't this a good outlet for them? Not if your dog's having a bad day. It's not. It's only a good outlet if it's a good outcome. What happens if one of those dogs are having a bad day, right? Sometimes it's best just to let your dog come back and chill. Go back to comfort, go back to safety, absorb what they've just learned. It's one of the main reasons why I constantly remind people, especially people that have new to them dogs, everything that you do is going to cause anxiety and emotions and all sorts of stuff because you haven't developed trust yet with them. They can't trust the situations that you've put them in, all of that stuff. So, you should take in a new dog and just shrink their world down and then slowly build it back out. What most of us do, good natured, we're thinking about the dog, but what most of us do is we instead go, oh my gosh, you were in the shelter system for so long. Here's all this stuff that we can experience, and it's way too much. You'll have far more examples of layered stress triggers and situations when we do that to our dogs. So there you have it. That's a layered stress model. Thank you very much to Chad Mackin of Pack to Basics. It was the first time that I had sort of heard it presented in that way. I had heard it presented with like natural horses and natural horsemanship with horses and that sort of thing, but I think Chad did a great job of kind of explaining it in that way, and I appreciate his time and his lectures. Anyway, that's it for today, my friends. Let me know what you think about that. Have you been in a situation where perhaps you've put too much on your dog? Too much, too fast, too soon, too fast, too much, whatever. And is that the reason that's causing your dog's reactivity? Have a little thought about that. Let me know. If you enjoyed this episode, please be sure to share it with your dog-loving friends or leave a review on Apple for me, because it really does help let me know that you're enjoying the content. If you have a podcast idea, please reach out. If we're email pen pals, reach out. Ask me questions. I might feature it here on the podcast. And as always, get out there today and be the person that your dog thinks you are. Because your dog thinks that you are amazing, and so do I. Have a fantastic day, and I will see you in the next episode. Bye for now. Oh, and one more thing. This podcast is meant for entertainment and education purposes only and should not replace hands-on professional training. If you are really struggling with your dog, please be sure to reach out to a professional in your area. All right, I think that's it. Bye for now.